like to call the special meeting of April the 11th. April the 11th?
March.
Yes.
March.
Let's go back to March 11th, 5 o'clock. I guess I'm wishing it away. First thing we're on our agenda tonight is approval of the fiscal 2021 proposed budget. Ms. Shepherd, please.
Thank you. The budget being proposed for adoption and presentation to the Board of Supervisors reflects the most immediate needs of the division as determined through numerous stakeholders and staff meetings, as well as 5 school board work sessions over the past several months. Specifically, the changes to the current budget that are being proposed for fiscal year 2021 are to fully implement teacher salary scale, instructional assistant scale, and nurse scale revisions, as well as 1% plus step increase for all other employees. Absorb the cost of the VRS rate increase. Half-time, 1/2 of shared cost of patient care tech teacher. Making employee health insurance rates market competitive on 2 health insurance plans and adding employee plus children tier on 2 plans, which is the Key Advantage 1000 and the high deductible healthcare plan. Adding 2 additional EL teachers. If you will recall from our meeting a month ago or so, we talked about we had an additional 30-some EL students in the last year. So this would help us serve their needs. Adding 2 behavior support specialists, adding behavior support specialist program at 2 schools. This is in relation to the TDT services that we've received in the last many years has been decreased significantly, and we are noticing increased behaviors with students in our schools, and this will help those the students by the TDT support that we would hire would be able to go in and work with kids individually, and would be able to work with teachers on helping support the behaviors. And if a student is having an issue in the classroom, then the teacher, then the behavior support specialist would remove the student from the classroom, help the student with their behavior, reteach behavior expectations, and then when they're ready, they would take them back to the classroom. So that would help our teachers. The teacher would be able to continue to instruct their students in the classroom, and it would also help the student who's having the behavior issue with reteaching of the behaviors. The addition of 2 special education instructional coaches, and these, the next place our data shows that we would be in accreditation trouble is with our students with disabilities, and these 2 positions would help us with teacher expectations and content knowledge. 1/3 of our special ed teachers, or 18 out of 55 of our teachers, are provisionally licensed, which means that they have not had coursework that pertains to teaching methodology or pedagogy or classroom management. So this would help them with those things. Almost half of our teachers have less than 5 years of experience. And Mr. Smith can tell us that, oh, there he is. Mr. Smith can tell us that there is a teacher shortage in special education, and if we have a vacant position, it is difficult to find teachers who are licensed in special education. So we do not see that this is going to decrease the need to have instructional coaches. And we have implemented instructional coaches at all of our elementary schools for language arts and math. And at Ewis and Morrison specifically, they've had a tremendous impact because they're able to go in and work with teachers and give them ideas and model teach or co-teach with these teachers. And they're non-evaluative, so the teachers don't feel uncomfortable with the instructional coaches in there. So any questions about either that or the behavior specialist program that I just mentioned? Okay, the other additions are adding 2 additional instructional resource team specialists, replacing 5 buses with a lease-to-own term, $150,000 for textbook replacement, and increasing the CTE budget due to increased enrollment, and that was about $5,000. So the General Assembly is scheduled to reconvene tomorrow, March the 12th, in its extended session to vote on the proposed budget. If it passes, it will go to Governor Northam's desk for a signature, and it will be several days, possibly 10, before the Department of Education is able to provide a template which will give us a detailed breakdown of the division state revenue. The projected state revenue in the proposed budget is based on the governor's proposed budget with the addition of the compensation supplement, which we anticipate is $389,548, which is from the House budget. And the cafeteria budget is based on projected revenue and expenses as provided by Sodexo and reviewed by us here. So, Rob, would you like to talk us through this page here?
Yes, the second page is just our projected revenue for next year. And it's very similar to what you've seen at our other meetings. There are 2 changes. And they're both in red. If you'll look on the left-hand side of the page, about middle way down, there's a $389,548 figure, which is what Mrs. Shepherd mentioned earlier as far as the compensation supplement. In the governor's proposed budget, that was a 0 sitting there. So what we've done, and we still don't know what, as was mentioned, our exact breakout on the state budget. We know what in general has been included in the budget, but then when you go break that out between the 132 or 33, whatever the number is, school divisions, we have to wait for DOE to give us those templates that we can figure that. So we're going just basically on some assumptions. One, that what was in the governor's proposed budget remains. Now that doesn't mean it will. They could take away a little bit and hopefully add a little bit back somewhere else. But because there is that compensation supplement, and this is the amount that the House of Delegates budget approved, or did approve in their budget that they adopted, and it's the same amount of an increase in all that they're giving us this incentive to do, we've added that into there. So that's been added in. And then if you go over on the right-hand side, and about 2/3 of the way down on the right there, the county appropriation shows a $267,200 increase. When we began building our budget, because that's the last item that we would look at adjusting to balance our budget, we left that level funded. Now it does show the $267,200 increase. That's the amount of additional money from our county that would be necessary to balance the budget and include the items in particular that Mrs. Shepherd just went over and that we've talked about in our previous budget meetings. That, and we didn't back into this way, we backed into it because that was what was needed to balance the budget, but it comes out to almost exactly a 1% increase, a 1 point, bunch of zeros, and then a number percent increase. So that's what we're looking at there. So what happens if the state approves a budget and when we get it, we find out that it's not what we have here? Well, if it's more money, that's good. Then we've got to go back, or we can go back and look for additional priorities off of another list that we have that's sitting out there of items that just didn't quite make it but are definitely, I'm sure, needed. So that's easy, not easy, but that's the preferable way to have it happen. If it's less, then what will happen is we'll, depending on the timing, we probably will let the Board of Supervisors know that our total budget needs to be reduced by a certain amount because the state funding level has been reduced, and you'll have to look at the priorities then and go over them and make decisions, just as we would in other years when we present a budget to the Board of Supervisors, and in some years they may not fund it at the level that you request, and then we have to go back and reprioritize and balance our budget, because of course we always have to have a balanced budget. So that is the revenue picture at this moment. I I did check just before I came up here to see if that template was available, because I'm very anxious to see that, because then we'll know exactly what we'll have from the state. But this is certainly not the first year where we've not had a state budget when we presented to the Board of Supervisors. Typically, it hasn't been approved, or certainly hadn't been approved or signed by the governor by then. One year we remember not so fondly, it went to June before we got a state budget, and that really puts everyone in a fix. But that's where we're at. I'll be glad to answer any questions you might have regarding the revenue or anything related to that.
I had a question on the bus lease.
Okay.
Did you handle that, or you're involved in that, or can you answer those?
We haven't really, we've gotten a quote and we have a feel of how we would do it, but till we actually have the money approved, we haven't really gone ahead with finalizing anything. It would be a 5-year lease that at the end of the 5 years, we, Warren County School Board, would own the buses. We've done that before a number of years back, and it worked well for us. It allowed us, particularly when we're in the hole we're in now as far as bus replacements, to get those buses in and get 5 of them. That $120,000 that we're going to use over 5 years would just barely, and maybe a little extra, pay for only 1 bus if we were to pay just for one, just to purchase it outright next year. So this gives us the use of 4 additional buses over that 5-year period.
So is there money down on that?
No, it's a fixed amount each year of a lease that we would pay, the $120,000, and it might be a little bit less than the $120,000. That's rounded up probably to the nearest thousand or so, but it's a fixed payment for 5 years, and then at the end of the 5 years, the buses are titled over to us in full.
And I believe, Rob, the lifespan for the buses is roughly 15 years.
The state, in their funding for us, they use a 15-year replacement cycle.
So we get 10 years for whatever.
Yeah, once they're all paid for, we've got another 10 years at least. And if you look at the age of our buses,
Yes.
we probably get another 15 years out of them. But hopefully, we can break that trend.
But it's just a fixed rate.
Sure.
No money up front.
That's what I was.
Yeah.
Straight, yeah.
Sounds like a no-brainer to me.
And we've replaced 7 buses over the last 10 years. Isn't that the right number? Yeah.
So,
Yeah, we should have
Yes.
done, yes.
so the last time we replaced buses was,
So Rob, do you remember when the last time we replaced buses?
Well, just a year ago, we bought 2.
Two,
was
I
it
think.
2?
Yeah. So,
We have a great maintenance department that
sure.
catches them up and keeps them going.
yeah, they do.
They do a tremendous job of keeping them going and keeping them safe.
So there's no state regulation that says after so many years or so many miles or hours, you got to pull them.
Not that I'm aware of. Now, they do have to pass rigorous safety
Sure.
inspections, and I think that's probably where they catch it, as opposed to just a age or mileage.
Cycle.
Yeah, the recommendation is 15 years, but there's no recommendation for when you have to get rid of that.
Okay. So we're working ourselves out of a hole on that one. I
Yes,
guess.
Yes.
Okay.
yes. And we want to continue to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other questions on budget?
And then the last page is just very similar to the page that you've seen over the last couple of months. And it shows the request that we are asking the county Board of Supervisors for the $267,000, which would give us a level funded budget, or a zero
The balanced budget.
balanced budget. Thank you, Rob.
There you go with that.
Does everybody
Questions
agree with what's presented? I mean, and what we're asking for as far as the
At this
different
point,
positions?
and when everything, all the numbers come in.
I mean, we don't know, I mean, that we're gonna have the money from the state. I mean, we assume.
We may have to tweak it.
Yeah, we may have to adjust, but I agree, personally, I agree with the textbooks, the buses, the teachers, the salaries being fixed, do it this year and be done with it. And a 1% increase over last year's budget, I feel is very fair at $267,000. I don't think that's much of an increase for what we're trying to accomplish here.
Would you like
Yeah,
to?
well, just historically, I think it needs to be pointed out that Mr. Drescher, in his vision to bring the salary scales and the teacher salaries in line, or at least competitively in line with the counties and the Board of Supervisors in making some increases over the last couple of years that made that possible to begin with, and then puts us in a position, because of fortunate circumstances with our enrollment increase and that kind of thing, to be able to complete that process. Just shows how we've been able to work together with the Board of Supervisors over the years and to continue to work with them. So.
In that respect, I think we're the envy of many surrounding counties and our good relationship.
Yes, I agree with that statement, yes, wholeheartedly.
Would you like a motion?
Anything else? Absolutely, Ms. Bowden.
I move that the proposed fiscal year 2020-2021 operating budget in the amount of $62,247,344, with a total local contribution of $26,956,323, and the cafeteria fund budget in the amount of $3,070,728 be approved for submission to the Warren County Board of Supervisors.
Have a
I'll
second.
second.
Okay, Mr. Ballentine, would you do a roll call, please?
I will.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman,
Aye.
Dr. Pence,
Aye.
Mrs. Bauer,
Aye.
Mr. Rinaldi,
Aye.
and Mr. Wells. Aye.
Motion carries. Any other business?
Yes, there is a Board of Supervisor budget work session on Tuesday, March the 17th at 9 a.m. And Mr. Ballentine and I will be there to speak to the proposed 2020-2021 school budget, and you guys are all welcome to
What
attend.
date was it?
March 17th, Tuesday at 9 a.m. in the caucus room.
Do you know where on the agenda?
We're at the, yes, we're at the
Second.
third,
Third?
yeah, so, but it's close to the top.
Yeah, we're third. Second one.
So, St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah.
Board of Supervisors.
St. Patty's
It
Day.
sure is.
That's all.
All right, why don't you share with them about AS Roads, what's happening?
Oh, absolutely. So tomorrow at AS Rhodes Elementary School, we will be receiving the first of our learning cottages. And it will be put in place there on the play court next to the multipurpose room. So we're looking forward to that. And then the 3 remaining learning cottages, modular units, whatever you want to call them, will be delivered next week. So we will start to see progress on the renovation of AS Rhodes Elementary School. So
Moving forward.
I drove by the other day, thinking, are they up yet?
Yeah, tomorrow, Canada, tomorrow.
they delivered some moving equipment, some staging stuff today, so tomorrow.
Anything else before the board?